context that we are looking at is the ideal is the real. So there we actually will now try to understand what exactly Plato has in mind. Now, when Plato talks about his uh, what should I say about the allegory of the cave, he's saying that the cave dwellers who have never come out of the cave and who have never seen objects outside of the cave are only looking at their shadows, which are thrown into the cave through crevices in the roof or through holes. And when light comes in, along with it, it brings in the shadows. So the people in the cave have a tendency to confuse the uh, shadows for real objects. So it is here that Plato makes a distinction. He makes a distinction between the real and the actual. So the real and actual in philosophical terms are two different things, though we also have a tendency to use really or actually interchangeably. We use these terms interchangeably, but the fact of the matter is that they cannot be used interchangeably in philosophical discourse. What you find in philosophical discourse is that there is a difference uh, between the actual and the real. The real is the tree. The actual is the shadow of the tree. This is also there in Indian philosophy in the concept of Maya. When you talk about Maya, Maya is not an illusion in the sense that something that is not there is being made to appear to you. That is not the idea of Maya. What Maya is, that Maya is not the actual. I mean, it's not the real, it's the actual. So let me give you an example. If you're driving on a road during hot summers, if you drive along uh, uh, tar road, one of the things that you'll see on the tar road is those mirages kind of things. You know, you get to it at a certain distance, it looks like there's water up ahead on the road. The fact of the matter is that is not water. It is just something, it is the light that is falling there, that in conjunction with the material that is there in the tar of the road, that is something that basically makes you believe that looks like water. It's not water. So that is the actual. Okay. So Plato is basically saying the world of appearances, which was talked about by the Eleatic school. It was talked about by Zeno. It was talked about by uh, uh, what's his name now? Uh, Suddenly gone out of my head. Uh, Parmenides. Thank you. Right. So Parmenides, the world that they talked about, the world of appearances, which they said is misleading, is precisely this. The world which is actual is misleading because it is not what you think it is. It might seem like a tree to you, but it is not a tree. That mirage-like thing that I talked to you about might seem like water, but it is not water. So what we need to understand, therefore, is that this is the influence of Parmenides and Zeno. And it is here that Plato is talking about how appearances are deceptive and illusory, and how they generate wrong pictures, and therefore they should not be taken into consideration at all. For him, the real knowledge is the knowledge with which you are born. I told you that he believed that we are born with knowledge, and being born with knowledge here basically has to be seen as, you know, uh, innateness. Your mind is not empty when you're born. It already has structures of knowledge built into it. So that's what he's talking about. And this particular knowledge that is already there in the mind at the time of the birth itself is something which happens or comes into being in the realm of the forms. The realm of the forms, I told you, is the realm where the souls meet, and the souls exchange knowledge. Uh, so the souls exchange knowledge, and it is that particular knowledge which is the correct form of knowledge for him. Okay, and we are born with that knowledge. So the world of appearances is imperfection. Okay, the world of appearances is imperfection, and knowledge of imperfection is not knowledge. Then what is real knowledge? How do you define, or how does Plato define real knowledge? Plato defines real knowledge basically by taking into consideration the idea that When we are born, since we are born with knowledge, that knowledge is something that is representative of perfection. And real knowledge exists not in the form of objects, not in the form of things, but it exists as ideas. That is what Plato talks about. So, if you look at Plato, if you ask him, could you please elaborate a little more on this? He gives you two examples. The first example is that of a horse, the animal horse. So he basically claims that any number of empirical horses, empirical are objects, okay? Those that can be touched, smelled, felt, seen, heard. So any number of these kind of horses, they are not perfect. Bring all the horses in the world, they'll have some defect or the other. Some, it might be a very minor defect, but it'll have some problem with it, some defect in it. And that makes it an imperfect horse. So, what is the perfect horse then? What is the perfect horse according to Plato? The perfect horse according to Plato is the idea of the horse, not the horse itself. No horse is perfect. No horse is perfect. Okay? What is perfect is the idea of the horse. Similarly, I told you that he was also a mathematician. He had his predilection towards geometry and diagrams. So he asks similar questions. Which is the perfect circle? So you can draw any number of perfects. I mean, you can draw any number of circles, but none of these circles that you are drawing, none of these circles are perfect circles. They are not perfect circles. Okay. So if you therefore consider the question of which is the perfect circle, the answer that is given by Plato is that the idea of the circle is the perfect circle. So, something in order to be real has to have perfection. It has to have perfection. And perfection exists at the level of ideas. Hmm? Those of you who are dreaming about a perfect husband, when you marry somebody, he won't be perfect. He won't be the person that you dreamt of, right? The person you dreamt of will be perfect, absolutely perfect. There'll be nothing wrong with him. And then when you get married, you find out that men are full of all kinds of faults, inadequacies, stupidities. So they are not perfect. So the perfect husband is the idea of the husband, not the husband that you'll be marrying. Okay, so what you need to remember, therefore, is that for Plato, the existence of perfection is at the level of the ideal. And that which is ideal, that which is perfect, is only that which can be considered to be knowledge. So we can say that the ideal is the real. That is how we resolve what seems to be a conundrum to us. Okay? It seems to be a bit of a conundrum, a bit of a riddle. How can the ideal be the real? Now you know how the ideal is the real. Because it is everything that exists in the form of ideas. Who's the ideal teacher? The ideal teacher is the one who you have in your mind. None of the teachers, however good a teacher may be. I'm not talking about people like myself. There are other people who are good teachers. I shouldn't be considered a teacher at all. However good teachers you may meet, you will find that they are in some way or the other inadequate. They are not perfect. So who's the perfect teacher? The perfect teacher is the idea of the teacher. This is what we find in Plato. And this is how we resolve the seeming contradiction. Seeming, it is not a contradiction, a seeming contradiction of the ideal and the real becoming the same. Because normally we look at them as two different things, opposites. But in Plato, they are not opposites. And that speaks volumes of the genius of Plato. We'll have occasion to discuss more of this. I have been extremely unwell. I continue to be unwell. I am hoping to come to college tomorrow so that we can get on with your topic, with your teaching. I'm sorry. If that doesn't happen, I will definitely see you in the evening, maybe even for an extra half an hour between 6:30 and 7, because I'd like to finish that other paper as well. Both these can be clubbed together. Both these can be clubbed together, and some aspects of them, that is, not all aspects. So hopefully I'll be able to come to college tomorrow. Uh, right now, I'm not in a position to make any promises, except that the evening class will go on. So thank you very much for attending this class. See you tomorrow, either in the morning or at least in the evening. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sharni. Thank you, Varshita.